In this video, we're going to look at an example of a website design and look at improving it using our understanding of web design principles. This example of poor website design is an amalgamation of things I've seen students do in their assignments. Let's look at what's wrong with this design and use our knowledge of good design principles to make changes. The first thing that strikes me is that the body text is unreadable. There's poor contrast between the text and the background image. Either we need to lighten up the background image so that the text will show up better, or change the background to a solid colour. Here I've set the page background to white and the text is much easier to read. If you're wondering about the text, it's called lorem ipsum text and is Latin text widely used by designers as placeholder text during the design process. I'm also setting a fixed width for this page of 960 pixels. Browser display statistics on the W3 Schools site show only 2% of users have a display setting below 1024 by 768 pixels, so my design will still cater for the majority of users. I have chosen to use a fixed width design to give me some more control over the display of the page. It would be a valid choice to leave the site to fill the browser viewport. This is called a liquid design. In this case, there's no right or wrong, just a design decision. The next thing to notice is that the text is all bold and uppercase. This is the internet version of shouting. Also, since everything is emphasized, there's nothing to guide the viewer's eye or indicate relative importance within the content. We can apply some of the principles of visual hierarchy to improve the design. Visual hierarchy uses technique of size, color, typeface and positioning to indicate relative importance of elements on the page, and we can use it to guide the user's eye. It's one of the fundamental concepts of website interface and information design. Firstly, we'll change the uppercase text to standard case and remove the bold. Centering body text is difficult to read because the starting position of each line changes, forcing the reader to work harder to find where each line begins to continue reading. Let's make the text flush left. It is still just one solid block of text. Let's add some spacing between the paragraphs in the body text to break it up a bit. That helps with the readability. Jacob Nielsen says users scan web page content rather than read in depth, and our design can help them find what they're looking for more easily. Headings are a useful technique in creating a strong visual hierarchy. They are signposts which can draw the user's eye and help them scan the text to find the information they're looking for. I'm going to use size, color and typeface to create some headings. The blue headings in a sans serif typeface contrast clearly with the body text. I've also dropped the size of the body text a bit to create a clearer sized contrast with the headings. The text looks a bit crowded on the left and right margins, so I'll bring it in from the edges a little bit. Our simple changes, driven by our understanding of the principles of visual hierarchy and how users read web pages, have made our design much more readable. But we're not finished yet. Let's look at the headings and navigation. Nielsen talks of an F-shaped scan pattern users use when they view a page. This indicates they look across the top and down the left-hand edge of the page first. This means the placement of our main site heading in our navigation is good. It is placed where the users will look first. The F-shaped scanning pattern also means we could have the navigation down the left side and still catch their eye. However, purple text on black background in our header is not very readable. Using the same principles of visual hierarchy, I'll make it a bit bigger to indicate its importance and change its typeface and color to make it stand out better. I will also use some spacing underneath it to clearly separate it from the site navigation. So let's look at the navigation. The first issue is the repetition of the main site navigation across the top of the page and in the footer. Let's see if that repetition is helpful or confusing for our users. The term cognitive load refers to the amount of thinking a user has to do to navigate your site. The more options and the more they have to look at and process, the greater the cognitive load on the user. This is particularly an issue with inexperienced users. Giving them two sets of identical navigation options in different areas of the page increases the amount of visual processing they need to do for your site. I'm going to remove the duplicated navigation from the footer. This leaves this space free for secondary navigation or less important links like copyright notices, terms and conditions, or privacy statements. Things users might need, but clearly separated from the more important main site navigation. The navigation links would also benefit from some visual hierarchy. They need some spacing to separate them out and a change of colour to make them more prominent. Here I've placed them on a grey menu bar and spaced them out a bit. Visual feedback is a vital part of navigation design, so the link text and the background colour changes when the mouse rolls over them, clearly signalling to users that these are clickable navigation options. So our design has come a long way, but there's still more to do. The image in our design needs some attention. It's taking up a lot of room at the top of our page. In design terms, the phrase "above the fold" is an old newspaper term which means you should place the most important information at the top of the page. In web terms, it means having as much vital content as possible visible without the user having to scroll down. There is a lot of wasted screen real estate on the left and right of the image. It's also a bit small, and it's been distorted. You can see the woman's face has been unnaturally squashed. Let's wrap the text around the picture and make it a better size. I've also removed the image distortion, returning her to her proper shape. This type of distortion happens if you resize the width and height of an image by different proportions. Just be aware of this when you're editing images. So let's look at how our site design has changed. Here is the site design we started with. By applying some of the basic principles of web design, like techniques for creating visual hierarchy, we've made the content much more readable. We've also thought about how users scan web pages and used this knowledge in placing our site heading and navigation. We've also thought about how much information our interface presents to users and tried to make navigation options more obvious. Our understanding of all these design issues have contributed to improving the design of the site. You should make use of them when you're deciding on the layout for your own website design. Don't worry about whether you know the HTML to create your design. Get an effective layout designed first.